All right, all right. Welcome back to the Military Retirement Podcast. Good to see you, John, again.
Good to see you again too, man.
It's
How's
not
everything going?
like, hey, it's all right, man. It's been a heck of a week. It really has on my side. A lot of ups and downs. I think 2025 is throwing a couple curveballs my way,
Nice.
but we stay resilient and we stay adapting and overcoming every single time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
How about
just
you?
keep doing this thing, right? We just sat down and had a nice little chat yesterday, and hopefully that'll be out soon. And whenever it is, we'll push it out to the masses. It's good to be on other people's podcasts and check things out. So
Absolutely, absolutely. And real quick, John, I want to give a shout out to all the firefighters that are fighting the fires up in LA right now. I know I mentioned right off screen when before we went live that here in San Diego County, or even when you go up to like Orange County, if you go hiking and it's up in the mountains on the top, you can see like the discoloration in the sky. It's like blue and kind of orangish and all that, and it's spreading so fast that it's like it's hard to contain all that stuff. So yeah, shout out to those firefighters, the first responders responding to that, and also my condolences to the folks who lost all their possessions, their homes, and all that stuff in the fire. It's a terrible thing, and it's unfortunate, but stick together and we can rebuild this.
yeah, I saw a couple of people that I watch on YouTube that were doing some drive-throughs and checking things out and donating
Yeah,
like water and food and supplies and stuff. And
yeah,
it's crazy. It was very dystopian, and not only that, not only the wildfires, but I think they had like 100-mile-an-hour winds that came through and just blew a bunch of power lines and trees over. And
yeah.
I've experienced that firsthand in Augusta, Georgia, just this
Mhm.
past year, and that was kind of crazy. So I can imagine on a Los Angeles scale what that
Yeah.
looks like.
Yeah, it was crazy seeing it on the news as they were doing it. Like the firefighters they have the hoses and they're high powered hoses, and they're barely hitting the houses
Yeah,
because all the wind's just pushing the water to the side. So, you got to get the right angle. It was a little rough to see. But yeah, my heart goes out to them. Absolutely.
yeah. Prayers
Yeah.
to everybody who lost their homes and people trying to get out of there in time. I hope you got out safe.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. On another note, I was reading some current events here on TikTok. So TikTok apparently is going away supposedly on January 19th, right? And I never really got accustomed to TikTok. I probably uploaded 2 videos on there, and I was like, you know what, f this. It's not for me. Um, but a lot of folks are scrambling to it. Like they're like, hey, please to their followers, please follow me on Instagram or on YouTube and all these other channels. But this one guy on here, he was like, yeah, nobody's going over to follow me now. I'm like, man,
From
that sucks.
TikTok.
Yeah, especially when it's like their livelihood, right? But it's like,
Yep.
unfortunately, they might have to find a real job. Who knows?
Yeah. Or figure out a way to actually do something on a different platform. It's not just I think a lot of people don't understand that, and not to get too far in the weeds on it, but like
Hmm.
every platform's different. It's every platform's got its own context, and you can't just post one thing and then repost it to 17 other platforms. Like you've got to tailor it to that platform, to that audience, to their mindset in that platform.
Yeah.
So you can't do a LinkedIn article and then take that and put it on TikTok, right? You have to
Hmm.
actually spruce it up and add some music to it and do some stuff, and
Yeah.
that's just the way it works. It's the name of the game.
I learned that the hard way when I was trying to make the shorts, and then I would just take like a screen record and try to put it on YouTube or on Instagram, but it's like everything's still on the side, all the words, and I'm like, ah, it looks like a mess. Nobody's gonna watch. I don't even want to watch my own damn videos.
Yeah,
Oh man. Um,
craziness.
I do want to bring up something on the screen here really quick, and it is
Yep.
let me see, share screen.
And
Let's go
shout out to
with
Brian Arrington, who just sent us a
yes.
message. We sent him a message back in the chat. But shout out to you,
Oh,
guy.
Brian. Shout out. Here we go. So I was reading this earlier in the week, and it's veterans receive free access to small business training. Syracuse University. So they're the ones that offer like the PMP, the certificate project management certificate. Syracuse University Institute for Veterans and Military Families provide free resource to veteran entrepreneurs. So definitely, and this was just released January 7th, 2025. So just recently. I mean, they are helping veteran entrepreneurs, if that's your thing, to get your foot in the door somehow. They're doing boot camps, entrepreneurship boot camps for veterans. Let me see if I can. I'd say just Google this because it's a long address, but it's definitely under the VA and it's definitely legit because it is on the VA website. But yeah, if you need assistance getting your foot in the door with becoming an entrepreneur, especially as you get out of the military, this is your way through. And I don't know if they give small business loans or anything like that, but I know that they provide classes. And from what I hear, they're very good classes on entrepreneurship and starting your own business.
I think you've been reading my mind, or maybe we're mind melding or something like that, because I literally just spent like a bunch of time today actually looking at grants and business type money that's available for different kinds of business startups, franchises, etc. I'm actually going to
Mhm.
reach out to the channel called the Grant Chatter. I don't know if you can see that or not, but
The Grant Chatter, no?
I don't know if that comes in focus or not, but I was watching that video and there's like 35 grants and services available to veterans in 2024. So I'm going to reach out to her and see if we can get her on the show because I think that's a very interesting topic. We've had a couple of guests on before. Sheena Parker was on a while back. She was one of our first guests, and she does a lot of small business contracting for government, whether it's local government or federal government or state government. And she's out there killing it in the contracting world. So there's
Nice.
a lot of things to be getting into if you want to do that. If you want to go down that path, there's tons of ways to get into it. If you want to get to a franchise, if you want to get to starting your own business, and there's grant money out there from $1,000 on up to 25, 35, $50,000 available to veterans and regular people as well. Like I say regular people, but normal civilians as well. Tons of money out there. So
Yeah. Why not get your hands on that pot of money? I mean, if not, then what happens? It just goes to waste, or they just
yeah,
start taking away from it. So might as well use it if it's there and available for us. So
absolutely.
excellent, man. So John, speaking of veteran benefits and everything that is available to us, our next guest is an expert on that. Let me see. Let me bring up her. Where is it? Here we go. Jane. I'm just going to read off of her LinkedIn because I won't do it justice. She is a veteran and widowers benefits educator, volunteer for VA healthcare, compensation, wartime pension, widower benefits, chemical exposure diseases. And she also does classes and media appearances and consulting as well. We've talked to her in the past. She's big on LinkedIn. She has a huge network, and awesome to bring on Jane Babcock to the stage. Welcome, Jane.
Hi guys, how you doing?
Hey,
We're doing
Jen.
well. Thank you. So, Jane, I know you do a whole lot. I mean, you've got a lot of connections on LinkedIn, and a lot of people know you, but maybe some of our viewers are new to you. If you could just give us some background on who you are, what you've done, and what you do for the veteran community.
Okay, well, I'm a retired sergeant first class, active duty reserves. I kept going after I went to the reserves, they kept calling me back, so I ended up with 4 DD-214s
Oh, wow.
and held 5 different MOSs in my 21 and a half years. Was shooting for 30, but got injured on some 45-day orders for getting ready to go to Afghanistan. And we were just in a tiny detachment. So nobody said VA, nobody said med board or any of the things they should have said.
Right.
And it wasn't until 4 years later I learned about the VA and I went, I should file a claim. I should go into the VA. And I became a county veterans service officer and spent almost 12 years helping over 1,000 claims get filed and teaching veterans how to do claims. And then I retired because of a health scare. VA caught an abnormality in my heart, and that was just before COVID hit. So COVID forced me to sit at home. So I decided, what the heck, I'll start writing articles. And that's led to numerous podcasts, couple hundred one-on-one phone calls with veterans and widows. And that's what I do. I just educate the family.
Well, that's awesome. And we really appreciate it. I know a lot of folks reach out to you, and that's how I found out about you, through John. And I know you and John connected at, I think it was the Military Influencers Conference. Is that right?
Yep. Well, before that, but yeah, definitely
Before
in
that?
person, right?
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So Jane, what, I guess right off the bat, and I've always been curious about this, and I've been trying to like Google this, and I come up with different answers. But I mean, based on what you've seen, based on your expertise and how many folks that you've helped, what do you think is one of the benefits, the veteran benefits, that is most unused by veterans that should probably be more used?
Well, in my 11 and a half years, I only had one veteran out of the literally thousands I met doing county fairs and everything else that answered yes to the question of, do you know what the wartime veterans and surviving spouses pension is?
Mm.
He goes, well, I've heard of it, but I don't know what it is. So that is the least used program. And yet there's probably a couple million widows and veterans that are eligible for it that don't receive it.
So how does that work? What
Okay.
goes into that?
Well, it's designed on income. And if a veteran served one day during wartime, say he went home the day after it started, or he joined the day before, did his active duty time, and may have been stationed in Kentucky or someplace, he served during wartime. So most eligible people are going to be over 65. They look at the household income, they subtract off the medical expenses, that includes the Medicare premium and all that kind of stuff. And then they say, oh, well, that's below the cutoff, which for a veteran, the cutoff is 130% of poverty. For a widow, it's poverty line. Now, you can imagine the year that a veteran dies, between the funeral expenses and everything else, and the widow's now living on just her Social Security, maybe, or excuse me, the veteran's Social Security.
Yep.
Yeah, odds are they're below poverty by the time you subtract off all their expenses plus the funeral. So I had a lot of widows that got 1 year of pension, and then others that became eligible for $35 or $100 or $1,000 a month for the rest of their lives.
Wow.
So yeah, it makes a huge difference. And for a married couple, it could be over $2,000 if one of them is experiencing in-home care or huge medical bills.
Yeah, just for the audience sake, and for people who may not have ever heard of this before, and I certainly have not really, I've heard about it, but I haven't really dug into it too far, too deep. But as far as the cutoffs for the income level, and I guess it goes off of your assets and everything as well, right? So that doesn't include your house that you own and certain
Nope.
things like that, right?
Right. The cutoff is 159,000. So most people think of low income, supplemental income, it's going to be Medicaid type thing. Well, that's $2,000 for the recipient. Depending on the state you live in, there's a community spouse amount too. So here in Wisconsin, if a spouse is living in the community, they can keep 60,000, but the VA starts at 159,000. So it may extend by several years the length of time it takes to get Medicaid eligible.
And that's changing up a little bit too now with some of the new VA things that they're doing, the adjustments, the increases to VA benefits and COLA and all that stuff. Some of that's adjusting as well. Is that correct?
Yes, VA benefits increase the same way Social Security does. They use the same growth. So we got a 2.5% raise this year.
Yep.
So it keeps tracking a line, which never, of course, keeps up with the cost of living.
No. But the active duty got a nice kick this year. I think that was I think the highest was like 14.5% or something like that increase in pay for E1 through E4.
Yeah, and don't they deserve it? Because they were living on below poverty incomes.
Right.
So, they were on food stamps. Tell me that's not wrong.
Interesting.
But most people think of that pension as being an over 65 program. Well, the over 65 is, it doesn't matter whether you're healthy or not. It's just based on your income. But under 65, one of my young guys came home from the sandbox fairly unscathed, got him a small compensation going, and then he was in a motorcycle accident. And he'll never work again. So at the age of 22, he was receiving $850 a month from Social Security supplemental income because he didn't have enough work history to qualify for disability. So they were giving him $850 a month, and we put him on the VA pension and got him another $950. And this was over 10 years ago. So you can see the difference it makes. Vic, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I got too excited. Does that, you just mentioned like you got them an extra 900. Does that go up with like COLA or anything like that? Or does that every year, does that increase?
Yep. Anything financial from the VA that's a reoccurring monthly payment will increase by same as Social Security.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. Jane, I know you do a lot of research on this, and I guess I haven't done as much as I wanted to, but do you know of any new benefits available or that will become available to veterans, say like this year versus what was available last year, or even when the new administration comes through? Have you heard of anything coming down the pipe?
Well, the big thing is on January 8th, the president signed for 4 new conditions under the PACT Act. So if a veteran is out there and he's suffering from any type of urinary or ureter or anything to do with your kidney function and all that kind of stuff, especially if it's cancer, get in there, get it filed. You are eligible. If it's a cancer, you are definitely eligible for compensation. And when you are in active cancer, that's almost $4,000 a month.
Hmm.
You are a year off of cancer treatment and still cancer free. Then they look at the side effects. Side effects like urinary leakage or inability to pass urine, so you're having to cath yourself or things like that. And then they rate those individual things. They also look at the medicines that you're taking. Our PTSD guys, a lot of times, PTSD meds, any mental health drug, side effect is it impacts your libido. For guys, it's ED. For women, it's sexual desire gets impacted. So if that's happening, talk to your doctor, get it recorded on your medical records because you have to have a diagnosis.
Right.
But you can file for that as a secondary to your service-related conditions and the medications you take because of them.
Do you know if you're like, let's say you're 100% VA disability or 100% PNT, and then these new things that came out that the president just signed, say you fall under one of them, would that open up your claim to be reevaluated and potentially reworked to a different percentage?
No, a lot of people worry about that, but the
Mhm.
only way they can reduce something is if you committed fraud in the first place.
Okay, right.
Okay? Because if you got a bunged up knee, it's not going to get better.
Yeah.
Okay? It's just going to progressively get worse till they replace it. So that the potential for it to be, and they're so busy, they really don't have time to look at anything except for what you're filing for. Remember, some claims are still taking a year.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we hear about it
Yeah.
all the time.
But if it's a simple basic claim like urinary cancer, you can put an expedite because that's considered a terminal diagnosis, just like ALS. ALS is presumptive for all of us, no matter when you served. For every 3 people that get Lou Gehrig's disease, 2 are usually veterans. And since the VA can't separate what's military caused and what's genetic or you would have developed it anyways kind of thing, they have to grant in favor of the veteran. And if you get one of those diagnoses, be sure and expedite the claim. And if it's really severe, like you're stage 3, stage 4, or something like that, brain cancer, then you can get it done in 2 weeks. I did lots of claims in 2 weeks' time. simply because I had a liaison. Every accredited VSO out here has a liaison inside the VA. So they can submit a claim, email the liaison and say, this is an expedite claim based on stage 3 lung cancer, if you're Agent Orange, or burn pit. And they'll pull it. They'll put it on the top of the stack. Or if you have past due bills, a guy messes up his back in service, eventually gets to the point that he can't work out here in the civilian world, and he's behind on his mortgage, or he's a couple months behind on his utility bill, or whatever. We're able to send in that evidence and say financial hardship, expedite. But if you don't know how to do it, you're going to sit there and wait for your claim.
Are there certain forums that need to, or who would submit that on behalf of the veteran? Like, would they find that online themselves, or do they go to like a VSO and submit that?
You're better off going to a VSO, because
Okay.
when I was an accredited VSO, because I'm retired, I could go into the system and actually see the casework notes. I could see that it's been flagged for an expedite. I could see which regional office is processing it.
Hmm.
Oh, I look at the regional office and I go, wait a minute, they just denied a lung cancer Agent Orange guy. They can't do that. I can pick up a phone and say, liaison, please go up and slap that person in the head for me.
Let's reach out and touch someone for those 80
That's it.
babies out there.
That's it.
Yes, I still do that, but now I use the liaison not as a VSO. I take the word of the veteran and or widow. I'm working a case right now where a widow has been denied twice for lung cancer for an Agent Orange guy, and it's like, you can't do that. That's not illegal. That is illegal. Even if the death certificate says lung cancer due to smoking. No, that does not matter. So I reached out to my old liaison and said, can you look at this? And he went, oh, okay, I'll go slap somebody for you. And I expect within the next 2 weeks, she'll get her correction.
You mentioned 4 things on the new things for 2025. We covered the PACT Act. We covered urinary / kidney / cancer, and secondary for SSRIs leading to potential ED or something like that. Were there 2 more, or any other ones that you want to mention?
Yeah, well, it's the whole urinary tract. So
Okay.
there's individual, there's kidneys, there's bladder, there's, ureter, the tube between them and stuff like that. So anything in there.
I got
Yeah.
it. Got it.
Now, there is a big push for the Vietnam Agent Orange guys because they did put brain cancer on the burn pits. But the Agent Orange guys still don't have it on their presumptive list. Now, I actually assisted in helping get an Agent Orange brain cancer guy his claim. As far as I know, it may still only be the only living veteran to receive his benefit. Filed as an expedite, 2 weeks later got the denial, filed as an expedite, got the first level appeal denied, turned around and handed him off to an amazing, incredible veterans lawyer. And her name's Katrina Eagle out in California. And I certainly hope she's doing okay with all this fire situation out there. But Katrina Eagle at Eagle Law has a genetic oncologist. That guy actually took my veteran's blood, broke it down to the genome, said he has no cancer markers. He should never develop cancer except for an outside influencer. Greatest influencer in his life, Agent Orange. He also, because of the type of work he does, he had all these scientific studies in other parts of the world. Australia is studying it, and England is studying it, that relationship. So he cited all those, and she expedited it. Unlike some lawyers, she's not interested in delaying your case to get more money. So she expedited it. Within 30 days, she was in front of the board. They looked over the doctor's Nexus and went, yep, you're right. And so we actually got his award for 100% plus housebound and 8 attendance because by that point he was pretty weak. And 2 months later, the office did his wife's DIC claim.
Oh.
So yeah.
Jane, I wanted to ask you, so we've been getting some a question regarding the Neer claim. I don't know if you're familiar with that. So we've gotten it a couple of times from a gentleman on the or from a listener on the podcast, and he was just looking for updates on that. Don't know if you have any updates, or are you familiar with that, and what's
Yeah.
coming with that?
Okay. Neer is actually a guy sued the federal government,
Hmm.
and he won at the Supreme Court, which is like incredible. But he said, look, VA, I'm an Agent Orange guy, I'm a Vietnam guy. I had this condition. It's not my fault that you guys didn't take the scientific evidence I submitted or the evidence I submitted and award me. But yet, 5 years later, 10 years later, you put it on the presumptive list.
Hmm.
Agent Orange currently is the only thing that will allow the VA to say, hey, we just put this on the presumptive list. You filed for it 20 years ago. We're going to give you 20 years worth of back pay.
Well,
So, like one of my guys, he got $480,000 in back pay.
Wow.
But if that guy Neer had not filed that lawsuit and
mhm.
won, it would have been, okay, now it's on the presumptive list. You file for it, and we'll go from here forward. What that also means is widows. And or I had a young woman called, well, 40-ish, which to me is young.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
It still is.
But she called the office and said, I just had some stranger call me up and tell me he was the VA, and he gave me my dad's birth date and his social security number and all this stuff. And he was looking for, they were looking for my mother. And I was like, well, what did they say? They said
Mhm.
it was the VA and they were calling. They needed to reach out to her. And she goes, I told him my mother was dead and I hung up on him. What? Her mother was dead. And I said, okay, well, let's check the VA. So I called the VA, gave them my credentials and stuff, and they looked in the claim and they said, oh, he was owed $9,000 from a Neer claim.
Hmm.
So he had passed, and so had the mother, because otherwise it would have gone to the spouse, the surviving spouse. So since she was gone, it goes to the next of kin within the line of legal inheritance.
Makes
So
sense.
it will go out to the second line of that inheritance. So she was gone. It was due to the children. And her birth certificate happened to be in his file. That's how they found her. But they didn't know about her two brothers. So she gave them the information on them, and they each got $3,000.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah. And then they split the burial stipend. Because if a veteran has even a 0 rating, he gets $255 burial stipend, family does. And if he is a service-related death or contributing factor in his death and it's service-connected, they get $2,000. So,
Wow. I didn't know that.
and the veteran doesn't have to be, if it's service-connected death, they fall over from ischemic heart disease and they're Agent Orange, never having been inside a VA or filed in a VA, the family's still entitled to the $2,000.
Right.
Wow. Yeah. So
I'm gonna
let's go to the
I'm gonna
questions here.
Yeah, I'm going to toss this up on the screen real quick, and then I probably
Yeah.
have a follow-up question. This is from Kevin Heimavicki, really good guy. He was also on the podcast before. If you want to see that episode, just go look for the guy standing there in desert fatigues, holding up some munitions on the thumbnail. Any advice to veterans who lost a kidney? Is there a connection to military service?
Under the new PACT Act, it may well be. So I would get into a VSO. If you got diagnosed on the outside world, not inside the VA, then please take those records, get the diagnostic records and your medical records and stuff like that so that they can look at what's going on and what your condition is. You lose a kidney or things like that sometimes, or especially when it advances into the bladder, you may be wearing a bag or, things like that. So get that stuff, get it into the VA, get it in to the claim. You know, if you file your intent, that's just one form. And you can go online and do this, or you can even call the 800 number, 800-827-1000, hold from hell number, and say, I want to open a claim for kidney condition or kidney cancer or anything like that. That locks today's date in. Then you go to the VSO, present your evidence, fill out the forms. They will do it all electronically, scan it, send it, and it's gone. So
Okay,
yes,
good.
please go in and see your VSO. And the easiest way to find them is 32 states mandate every county employ a veterans office. So check your county government first. If not, check your state government because they have regional and or state VSOs. Or if you're a tribe, go to your tribe because a lot of tribes have VSOs. And if not, then there's an index on the VA website, or check with your posts around you because they all have state and or regional reps that are accredited. So, but make sure they're accredited, that they go to training every year, that they've had their background checked, that they have access to the VA system. A lot of guys will say, well, I'm a VSO for my post, but they don't have access.
Mm-hmm.
And that access becomes real important sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot to mention on that. We did talk about the young man that was 22 and I put him on pension. With that access, I was able to find one sick call slip that in my veterans record that proved that he was blue water because that ship that he was treated on was blue water, not the ship he was stationed on. So having that access, I literally could go through all of his service records and say, oh, wait a minute, here's a sick call slip, shows he was on this ship and that ship is on the list.
Jane, can you explain blue water, that term? What is that?
Okay. For the Vietnam guys, there's this thing called blue water in that when you're on inland waterways, near the mouth of the rivers and stuff like that, or up in the rivers, the river rats, that's brown water because of all the soil being washed down in during the rains and monsoons and such, which also carried all that Agent Orange, which then floated on the top of the water and drifted out into the ocean. And these ships that were within 13 nautical miles, 12 nautical miles, 13 land miles. That's a lot of them sucked that water in, filtered it, and used it for swabbing the deck and doing all sorts of stuff like that. So, and the filtration systems then were not good. And then there was this guy that had to clean the filtration system by climbing in the tank and shoveling all the sludge off. Tell me that man was not exposed. So they finally opened that up. So if you suspect your veteran was, say he was Navy or a Marine on a Navy ship, it's worth checking it out. The VA right now has a list. It's not fully accurate because it takes years to get a ship put on the list. But basically, if you're able to get the ship logs off the National Archive, and it shows the latitude and longitude plottings at least 3 times a day, and that can prove the ship is there. They'll say, oh, is the carrier? No, it's too deep a draft. But that's not true because I just helped a widow find the record for the carrier that her husband was on, and there's one day that carrier was inside the zone. So
Wow.
now he's exposed, so therefore she's going to get her DIC.
Wow. How long did that take you? Like, what kind of digging did you have to do for that?
That takes a while, and you have to understand how to use these softwares that are out there with latitude, longitude, and it'll plot it. And so I've gotten to the point where I pretty much recognize latitude and longitudes that are going to be within that zone because I've been doing it for years. One of the ships that's on the list is called the Surfbird, SURF bird. So the Surfbird, at first it was saying, no, it doesn't qualify. But I was able to prove that the ship had been doing degaussing, where they look for like water mines and all that kind of stuff. So I was able to show that it was actually inside one of the bays doing that. So I got the
Wow.
ship logs and sent them in with my veterans claim,
Wow.
and then gave it over to the Vietnam Veterans of America, who then passed it along and got it put on the list. But it took 4 or 5 years to get it put on the list.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah.
So,
I got a quick question for you, and you've dealt with this probably tons and tons and tons of times, and you've dealt with a lot of veterans and even your own veteran claims and filing stuff. When do you think is the time when it's time for somebody to get a lawyer? Like if you're going through the process of putting in a VA claim, you're waiting, you're putting in paperwork, you're getting denied, you're getting, kicked back from the VA or whatever you're trying to do. When is it time to actually step up and get a lawyer? Because it seems like in most of the cases, especially with the Neer claim, this the VA, the educational benefits thing that just came up for the 9/11 and the GI Bill, it seems like it takes that kind of action at that high of a level in the court systems to get things then moved to the VA for them to take action.
okay. Well, the biggest and most important thing I can say is read your VA letters. Veterans, they get to the word denied and they get all brainstorming,
Yep.
and it's like, no. Let's look why they're denying. Oh, you never sent in that medical record that shows you have a current
Mhm.
diagnosis?
Hmm.
Because a VA claim is any injury or illness caused by or aggravated by military service that has a chronic detractor and has a current diagnosis. In other words, sprain your ankle in basic training and then 40 years later start having trouble with it. They're going to say, no, that's the aging process. It had nothing to do with service. But if you're able to show that you stopped playing baseball on Wednesday nights with the company softball team because your ankle kept giving out, if you're able to have your employer say, hey, he used to do a job that involved a lot of stooping down and standing up,
Mhm.
and excuse me, we had to change his job because he couldn't do that. So maybe you didn't go to the medical, every couple of years when it gave you trouble. But if you have witnesses to the impact on the quality of your life, that's just as good as a chronic medical record. Okay? So, yes, you have to read those letters. It will tell you why. But if you don't understand it, because it's written in legalese,
Yeah.
so go to your VSO. They go to training every year. Like myself, I did the regular training and I also took the advanced classes. I took the, board level appeals classes. So I was even more of a geek as far as reading regulations. I like doing that. I still like doing it. But knowing what's in that letter will tell you what's wrong. If it's something where, like my guy with the brain cancer, we weren't going to get it just based on VA, we had to have that nexus. And the nexus doesn't have to be, I know absolutely that this caused that.
Mhm.
That is only a medical professional saying, as likely as not. It's 50-50. If you can put that scale in equipoise, equal balance on each side, the VA must lean in favor of the veteran. So a lot of doctors go, well, I can't testify that caused that. But doc, is it likely as not? Is there a good chance that this was caused by that? That's all they have to do. They're not attesting to being there. They're not attesting to having this scientific evidence in their brain, but they're able to, on their medical profession, say, yeah, it's a 50-50.
Yeah. Best
So,
educated guess, basically.
yeah, pretty much.
Mm.
So then if you've gone through that and you've gone through at least one appeal level, there's 3 levels of appeal, one to review without adding new evidence, and then there's another where you can add new evidence, and then there's one more shot at it kind of thing. That's the point at which a lawyer, unless
Okay.
you are in a case like my guy, he was terminal and I needed that lawyer. I needed that person that could advance it on the docket. And she knew that, and she pulled it, and she did it. So lawyers are definitely there. They're definitely needed in some cases, especially if it's an 1151 where you're suing the VA for mistreatment, which is separate from military service. 1151 allows, one of my guys ended up with a belly mesh that collapsed. They had to do a belly surgery and it collapsed. It had nothing to do with service. And he ended up with multiple surgeries. So
Wow.
he sued under the 1151 rules. The yeah, there's just so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've already filled up my paper. I'm flipping to the next page already.
No. And when
I'm
it
getting
comes to
there.
these buddy statements, don't ever think you can't find somebody. One of my Korean War guys had been shot, put in a field hospital. The field hospital was overrun. He's stuck in the frozen rubble for a day and a half. He's Army. A bunch of Marines come in and save him, warm him up, and get him back to his unit. Well, there's no records. So I went to, he was able to remember what their patch looked like and a couple of their nicknames. And he thought he remembered the call sign for the unit. So I just went out on the internet and found all these places, all these websites and Facebook groups and all this stuff. And I posted, I'm a CV, you know, the gentleman was in his 80s. I wasn't going to make him do it himself. So I posted messages. I'm a CVSO working with Jim so-and-so. Do you remember the events in this valley at this field hospital? Blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
Contact me. Here's my number. 6 months later, I got a phone call.
Wow.
So that guy was still in touch with a couple of the other guys. So they all talked amongst themselves and they all wrote letters talking about pulling Jim out of the rubble in his frozen feet.
That's incredible. Wow.
Yeah.
So many years later, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Shoot.
But the best part about that one was that guy lived in Ohio. He drove up to Wisconsin up here where I live and picked my guy up and took him down to the reunion the next summer down in Indiana. So my guy got to thank
That's
all
awesome.
the guys.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome. Jane, I wanted to ask you about Nexus letters because I see a lot of that stuff on Facebook, and I'm always going around to these different groups on Facebook and just seeing what kind of questions folks have. And a lot of the questions are the weight of the Nexus letters. Do they need one? How important are they? How do they obtain one? Can you provide us any information on any of that stuff?
Sure. Nexus letters really are only necessary if you weren't treated in service, it's not in your service treatment records, and or you can't get witnesses that show that, yeah, he jumped off the back of the deuce and a half and he limped around for the next 4 days and his ankle was purple.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's an eyewitness to the events.
Right.
But if you can't find those kind of buddy statements or you can't have those service treatment records, that's where a nexus comes in because now it's asking for a professional medical person's opinion. You know,
Yeah.
is this ankle here? You know, he didn't get treated in service, got out of the service a year later, but he had service records showing that he had, on and off through the years. But you're trying to get it back into service.
Mm-hmm.
So that doctor can read all those things. And remember, if he's forming a nexus based on, okay, you were seen one time in service or you were seen for high blood pressure, you were not treated for it because back then, what they considered high blood pressure is like really high blood pressure by today's rules. So that nexus then goes, okay, by medical history, this would not have even been considered medical high blood pressure, but yet he has 2 readings in service that would now be considered high blood pressure. I believe I have a likely as not that his high blood pressure started in service by a medical professional.
Mm-hmm.
So that's important. They need to be able to review your service treatment records and or other medical records that they can form an opinion on. So if you filed a claim and you start that claim, the first thing the VA does is reach out to your branch of service and to the National Archives and asks for your personnel and your service treatment record. Now, 10 years later, you want to file a new claim and you want to know whether or not you were treated in service or whether or not it showed high blood pressure in service. under the Freedom of Information Act, you have the right to ask for a copy of your VA file, which will include your personnel and your service treatment records and anything you submitted on a claim. And you'll get that on a DVD.
That's awesome. Wow.
So, yeah.
Yep.
If you don't have those records, you can get them.
Yeah, absolutely.
For those out there who may not know or may be just experiencing this, going through this process for the very first time, and they don't really know what a DBQ is, what a Nexus letter is, and they're just learning about this stuff, because even myself over the last year or two of doing some of these interviews and watching Clay's channel and watching Veterans Info Tap, the two best channels on the internet right now for VA claims, in my opinion. There's like 5 different levels of justification on that Nexus letter, correct? And that middle one's the one you're talking about. It's the 50%. Can you break down those just real quick, the 5 different levels, what they are, so people just have them for understanding purposes?
Well, I haven't looked at the DBQs since I retired, so I'd really have to look at them again to be sure if what I'm saying is still what they're calling it.
Mm-hmm.
Because the VA is very good at changing rules and regulations, and so I would rather not say a wrong thing. But you can Google this stuff,
right?
And you can put in 38 CFR Nexus, and you're going to get a link to all the different references in the Code of Federal Regulation about Nexus. Okay, that's like if you have a knee and you got it rated at 10%, and now you're having more and more trouble with it, you can put 38 CFR Code of Federal Regulation knee, and you'll see this chart, the scale. If it's patelliforma, if it's, torn cartilage, if it's whatever, the different things, if it's tendon issues, you're going to find those ratings charts. So you could say, oh yeah, I can see why they rated me 10% because I met these 3 out of 4 criteria at the 10% level. But now with my new symptoms or my new loss of range of motion, I now hit the 20 or the 30%. When you're going for things like bones and joints and tendons and stuff like this, I used to tell my guys, look, the VA is supposed to rate you as if you are non-medicated. So if you're one of these guys that's popping ibuprofen all the time, stop popping it for at least 3 days ahead of time so that you can honestly say to the doctor, this is my pain point. When the doctor says, can you stoop down and touch the floor? What will most GIs and or Marines do? They will reach down and touch the floor.
Is that a dare? Are you daring me? That's what most of us would do. What
they really should be saying is, if you squat down to touch the floor, at what point does your pain start? Well, if you're taking anti-inflammatories, you're probably not going to notice it.
So Jane, I was always told, like, when you're going through your doctor's visits, it's the worst pain you've ever felt. That's what I mean. Even because I back pains and knee pains and stuff, I would take ibuprofens, right, or Motrins or whatever they gave me. But when I'm off it, when I'm on it, I'm good. When I'm off it, I still feel the pains. So I would tell the doc, hey, look, this is the worst pain I felt this week, this month, and it's not going to get better if I don't take the ibuprofen, right? It's going to be a temporary fix.
Right. And you have to remember, the person that's going to actually do the rating, that's going to put you on that chart and figure out if you're a 10 or a 30, is not the doctor, is not even a medical person, may not be a veteran. Odds are that he's probably not. And they are just going on what they see in writing. Now, the doctor doing the exam, he's filling out that DBQ type form that's, this much range of motion, that it doesn't really say to them, oh, by the way, you put a second railing in on your stairs so you can help yourself pull up the stairs.
Yeah.
It doesn't say you have to sit on your center of gravity to play with your kids on the living room floor because you can't kneel down. So whenever it came to things like subjective, well, today's a good day, today's not a good day, because you walk into a doctor's office, he says, how you doing? And most people say, okay.
Yeah, doing all right.
3 days
Not
ago,
really.
you could barely walk a block because your knee was swollen.
Yeah.
So I used to ask guys to please write a letter explaining, I'm filing for my right knee condition. I was treated in service or whatever. These are the events that led to my injury.
Mm-hmm.
Now I can't walk 2 blocks without pain. I can't squat down and touch the floor. I can't kneel on the floor. I have that second railing in the house. So that the rater can say, wow, yeah, he went to the doctor that day and he seemed to be okay, but 2 weeks ago, he was a miserable puppy.
Mm-hmm.
Explain it to them so that they have a true picture of you and what you've gone through. They're not Karnak. They can't read your mind.
So Jane, I've always been curious about this, and maybe you can give me some more insight on this. Because anytime I talk or attempt to get a hold of somebody who is a rater, they cannot give me much information. And how does that all work? Like somebody submits their paperwork, somebody submits their medical documentation, goes sees his doctor. Is there like a rating system, or is it like, hey, look, it depends on which rater you get, or is it all computerizized, or does it
Yeah, you're
matter if
never
like,
going to talk to a rater.
yeah, yeah,
They're like the Wizard of Oz. They're behind the magic curtain.
Like
Okay?
warrant
yeah, it's
officers.
true.
They're
Yeah.
not allowed to speak to you. When you
Yeah.
call that 800 number and talk to the call center,
Mm-hmm.
they're just reading what's in the computer.
Yeah.
And VA's databases, and I do mean multiple databases, that they have to look into to do a rating.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean that the guy at the call center has access to the same databases.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right.
He can only see in the work product database, which is the process that your claim is going through.
Mm-hmm.
So don't ever think you're going to speak to a rater. Even as a CVSO, I found that difficult, but I had ways of getting their name.
Yeah.
So your claim goes in. Usually you start out with an intent. Your VSO says, okay, in the meantime, I want you to go contact your doctor and get these medical records, get a statement from your spouse. Maybe you served 10 years in service and you were married at the time. And when you first went in, you had no problem with breathing at night.
Mm-hmm.
By the time you got out, you sounded like a Mack truck, or you were constantly pausing, sleeping, breathing at night. So your wife was always elbowing you. She can write a statement about that, about
Mm-hmm.
your symptoms of sleep apnea. So that helps your own personal statement. She can write about how bad it is now, all those kind of things. Your siblings can write about how, in high school he didn't have this problem, but then he joined right after high school.
Yeah.
And so those all help strengthen your claim and give a true picture of what's going on with you.
Oh,
Because most
excellent.
people don't get a sleep apnea test in service. But if you can get somebody to say, yeah, in service, I was his roommate when we were stationed at such and such, and Christ, he scared me because he'd stop breathing in the middle of the night, Well, there's all your symptoms in service. So
Have you heard anything for at least for the new year of any percentages going down for ratings like sleep apnea or anything?
okay. Well, sleep apnea, like ED, is not a measurable condition. It's not like they can say, prove to what degree you have ED or to what degree you have sleep apnea.
Mm-hmm.
You either do or don't. And in the case of sleep apnea, it impacts all your organs because of the constant lack of oxygen to all your organs.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so, no, that's not going to change. It is not going to change. It's not a rateable condition, but it is a special monthly compensation that gets added on top of your claim. So say you're 50% for PTSD, you're getting your 50%, and that's the only thing you're rated for. Well, ED is separate, but it's a side effect of your medication. That's $200 and some that gets paid in addition to your 50% compensation. So yes, there are some conditions that they're looking at and saying, maybe these should be reduced. Remember, compensation was designed for its impact on your employability. When they first started paying compensation to wounded soldiers, it was the idea that you're going to come home and you're missing a leg. Well, it's pretty hard to farm since prosthetics were little to nothing at that point in time.
Yeah.
So now you're going to be using a crutch the rest of your life. Well, that tangles up so that you can't use both hands to drive the plow through the fields. So compensation was originally designed as a replacement for employable income. A lot of conditions that we now have don't impact our employment so much. Okay. Yes, some of it, a little bit of that rating is for quality of life. And yes, if you go blind because of your service, then that greatly reduces your employability. But even then, there's a lot of blind people that work every day.
Yeah.
So that's where I think it's coming in, is that a lot of people are saying, look, a messed up back used to mean, extreme difficulty finding a job. But nowadays there's so much, especially in the technology and all this stuff, that maybe we're overpaying. I'm not going to say we are. I'm not going to say we aren't. But that's where that is coming from. It's just relooking at how realistic are the ratings and the impact of employment.
Yeah, there was a whole article that came out about that from The Economist. I'm sure you saw it, about veterans potentially getting too much money. But I mean, really, how do you put a price on quality of life? If you
Right.
can't move around, you're always going to feel that. Is $3,000 a month going to make you feel better? No, it's just going to improve. It's going to help you set up something, maybe a ramp in your front yard or something of that sort, right?
Well,
Improve
and
your
see
quality of life.
those things, like you mentioned, ramp. If it's because of your service, you get that ramp for free.
Hmm.
There's a lot the VA will do for the quality of life when it comes to a soldier or service member. So, and even if it's not due to your service, there's what they call HISA grants. It's adaptive housing grants. You're now in a wheelchair and you need the bathroom doorway widened so you can get in and out of there easier. If it's service related, they'll go in and change this bathtub into a roll-in shower and do everything like that. They'll put
Hmm.
Hoyer harness lifts all the way through the house if you need that. They'll spend a lot of money. They're a painful process to go through because you got to get free quotes and oh my God. But there's also a lesser one, that you're an aging veteran and you simply need grab bars in the bathroom, and
Hmm.
maybe you need the bathtub changed into a walk-in shower. It's that you can get that lesser grant to do that. So it doesn't have to be service connected. It's like hearing aids used to be, you had to show it was service connected hearing loss. Well, the VA realized that they had a lot of older guys that the doctor was saying, okay, now when you go home, I want you to take 3 pills once, in the morning, afternoon, and evening. And the guys were going home and taking 3 pills and then overdosing on their med. So they said, oh, why is that? Oh, because they can't hear the doctor explain the medication.
Hmm.
So now any veteran participating in VA healthcare can go get hearing aids.
Well, let me see
So,
here. I had a
and they're
We do.
great.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, well, I was going to say the hearing aids thing, they are greatly improving over time. I actually have a due out for myself, and maybe if you remind me, Vic, sometime, I got a rep from Sony. Sony just put out a new hearing aid system. They were at the Military Influencer Conference, stopped by the booth, talked to them, and they were willing to come on and talk about that and offer some support about that, because hearing loss is a big thing for veterans as well, across the board, basically. We do have 2 pretty decent questions in the chat. I don't know if you want to pull those up or not, Vic.
Yeah, so I'm on the LinkedIn and the StreamYard here, the stream, and that LinkedIn user is the same. That's the same question from both of them. So Michael Rodriguez. Let me
I got
show
them
it on
started in
here.
the chat. Yep.
Okay, so the question is, how can we change the cause of service-related injuries? For example, the doctor or nurse said that my knee injury was due to exposure of chemical because I said it was during my deployment. So, yep, go ahead. If you have any information on that, Jane, changing the cause of the service-related injury.
Well, first off, I'd go, how does a chemical affect
Yeah.
your knee? Unless you like had an injury and it went inside the wound and then, messed up the soft tissue. So educationally, scientifically, a medical professional in this case, if you go to, you can get your VA to do a second opinion. You can get outside doctors to do a second opinion if you have insurance. They can.
Mhm.
It should not be terribly difficult if you submit the evidence. And in this case, you're fighting one doctor's opinion. We'll turn around and give them two opinions that say that was a stupid opinion.
So, Jane, I'm going to pull up the second
bone is
portion.
not messed up by the chemicals.
I'm going to pull up the second part of his question here because he has submitted it twice. Um, it says they classified an injury was due to chemical exposure because I claimed it as a deployment injury, but there was no exposure, just wear and tear. And then and lastly, it was a mistake by the VA, and the VA doesn't want to change it.
Well, in that case, go outside the VA if you can. If you have insurance, go outside the VA. Yes, doctors can be egotists just like any other career field.
Mm.
You can find the bottom 10% of the class. You can find the top 20% who think they're God's brother. So go outside, get a second opinion, and really put it down in black and white. This makes no sense at all and explain it. But if they're saying chemical exposure, well, that's still service connected, because if the VA doctor is saying it was caused in service, it's still service connecting.
Right.
But to get the accurate diagnosis, I would go on the outside and I would seek two opinions. That's, as a CVSO, that's what I would have recommended to my veteran.
Excellent. Thank you for that.
We also got Lisa Whitehead.
Oh, yep. Says a friend has located his in-service medical records at his home. He wants to file a claim. Where can he turn in his service medical records? Thanks.
Okay. Well, go to the VSO. Again, your VSO, when we did everything by paper, I copied everything, gave them back a set, and the more important things I kept a copy in my office, especially DD-214s and stuff like that, because if they left my office, got in an accident, and got killed, I had the start of the paperwork for the spouse.
Right.
I had those records that I could look through and say, oh, he fell down the ladder in the Navy and hit his head, things like that. Okay, and now he's suffered a brain aneurysm. Can I find a doctor that'll relate the two?
And just for clarification, not clarification purposes, but just for like a starting point and a kind of a pathway to get to a VSO. If say you're in the middle of nowhere in America, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but this would be my thinking, is like, look for a local VFW if you can and see if there's a VSO there. Then the next one I would go to would be one of these bigger organizations like the DAV. The next thing I would do is go to a base. Actually, I would go to a base first if I was close by a base. But if I wasn't close by a base, then I would do the other two. Does that sound good? And are there any other suggestions?
For me, having worked as a county person, I would start with your county government. And the reason I say that is because if my veteran wasn't happy with my work or was exceptionally happy with my work, I'd say, by the way, I have a boss down the hall.
Mm-hmm.
Feel free, go down there and sing my praises. Or if you're not happy with my work, maybe it's because you don't understand that I can't make this basic claim move faster. I can't get it done in 60 days because I've already done what I can. The VA is going to take their blessed time. Back in 2008, it was taking up to 3 years to get a claim through the system.
Wow.
And that's where I'm not telling you not to pay your heat bill this month, but if next month you have one that shows 30 days past due,
Mm-hmm.
I can use that under the financial hardship rule. So I didn't tell you not to pay your bill.
That's when we could have used Elon Musk and the Doge back then. That would have been great back then.
Well,
Oh gosh.
but remember, even the VA is a multi-tentacled monster. And they have taken tiny little local area networks, tried to make them talk to larger networks, and tried to take those larger networks and get them to talk to each other. And because of coding and everything else that went on during the years, it's like trying to get a Mandarin Chinese and a Hunan Chinese to speak to each other. There's just enough of a difference in the language that they can insult each other without realizing it. Which is why a rater still has to look in no less than 3 different systems to get a rating done. Oftentimes 5 systems. So it's not an easy task sometimes. And really, those cover letters, those personal statements, I'm claiming this because of that, and this is how it's impacted me over the years, and this is where I'm at today. It helps lead that rater to be able to open up, oh, here's his service record. Okay. Oh, he says it was Easter of 1984. Okay, well, I'm going to go to the 1984 service treatment records. I'm not going to read the 20 years worth of medical records.
Right.
That helps them move your claims faster.
It's like setting up waypoints for them rather than just giving them a map and being like, go to this point over here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Excellent. Jen, I had a question about caregivers. So I know of a veteran, a Navy veteran, who is probably in his 80s, and his daughter gives him caregiver support, right? She's there. She does everything for him, basically. Is there a way for her to get compensation for that, for providing caregiver support, or via through him?
Okay.
It's his daughter, so she's providing everything for him, basically.
And actually, there's the questions I would ask would be, A, is it service connected? Does he have the VA rating for those conditions that are causing him to need the care? No. If he's not got a VA rating or not much of a rating, what's his income situation?
Yeah.
And what should he be paying her? Because maybe we can get him onto the VA pension program, and she would sign a form that says, this is how much he's going to pay me or is paying me weekly to take care of him. Now that becomes a medical condition that we can subtract from his income and therefore get a greater amount of pension money that now he can afford to start paying her. VA, when it comes to pension, looks backward 1 year or forward 1 year. Veteran comes in and says, my wife died 6 months ago, and now that my income situation's all settled, but we can use her funeral bill to even further reduce your income. Oh, well, we prepaid that 20 years ago. Doesn't matter. It's not effective until the day she dies. So, yeah, you paid for it many years ago, but we could still use it as a lump sum reduction to your income, therefore getting you a higher rate of pension. And you may only qualify for 1 year, but you may qualify for $1,000 this year and $50 a month next year.
Okay.
So yeah, there's variables there. And
Yeah.
if you're inside the VA system and you are getting assistance with your daily tasks of living, do you qualify for aid and attendance? The older veteran, if service connected, maybe for his spine and his knees and stuff like that, and now he can't get his own shoes and socks on, and he can't step in and out of the bathtub without somebody assisting him, or maybe he has a TBI or mental health issues now that are service connected, and he's not remembering to take his meds and things like this. That's aid and attendance. If somebody's helping him with the daily tasks of living, That's another special monthly compensation on top, and that's like $300 and some a month. Plus, she may then qualify for being a caregiver stipend. Work with your patient advocate at your clinic or hospital, VA, obviously, and they will help you go through that paperwork and get those medical records necessary to qualify for for caregiver stipend. The best organization to get not only support but guidance from is the Elizabeth Dole Foundation. They were vital. They were the John Stewart and Rosie Lopez when it came to caregiver. And if you don't know who Rosie Lopez is, that would be a gift. That would be somebody you guys should really get on. Rosie and Leroy Lopez are the ones that got the PACT Act pushed through.
All great info.
Yeah.
Lopez, Rosie and Leroy Lopez. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the Elizabeth Stewart Foundation, they're just incredible when it comes to caregiver. They have online meetings and stuff like that, Zoom meetings and whatnot, so people can help bond and help each other and do classes and all this, you know. And
yeah. No, all great info. And again, just like John, I'm filling up my logbook here with just a ton of great information. Yeah, there you go.
Page 2.
Page 2. So no, that's great because I didn't know about the aid and attendance, and I mean specifically this veteran. I'm pretty sure it's all VA connected because it has to do with his legs, his knees, and stuff like that from years ago. And his daughter does a lot of the work. You know, she's at his house almost every other day, really, because you know she has a day job as well, and you know,
yeah.
so yeah, it takes a lot of time. So it'd be great if she could get that
Should
stipend.
the VA be paying for more of that? Should they be getting a contract with a local provider?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if it's service related stuff like that, and God forbid he gets to the point where he needs a nursing home. If it's service connected, they're going to pay for the nursing home, and he's still going to receive his compensation. But
Well,
in the meantime, the VA has hours that they can provide through a local caregiving service so that she can still go ahead and go away for 10 days on vacation, or, you know, or just for the spouses, just to have 2 days of the week where they can get away for 4 hours, one to do grocery shopping and one just to get away.
Right.
The VA has those caregiver hours.
I'm gonna
that's all excellent news. Go ahead, John.
I want to throw this question on the screen, and if it's in your ballpark, that's cool. If not, I think we can answer it either way. But the question is, how do I get extra 12 months of GI Bill? I served active duty from February 08 to March 2016. Re-enlisted between my active duty and did 3 more years in the Guard from 2016 to 2019. So I believe it's my understanding that if you served for a certain amount of time and you were offered the GI Bill, whether you took it or didn't take it, and then you later took the post 9/11, that they can go back, that you can actually request for that, and it's almost the same as requesting for a VA thing, right?
When they converted from Montgomery GI Bill to the 9/11 GI Bill, and there was a lot of confusion, and they said, "Oh, this is the way we interpret the rules," and it wasn't right. So a guy actually had to again sue the government. But anything to do with education, and what you guys probably can't see it, but that's my business card. But on the back is the 12 most important numbers in the VA.
Oh,
oh yeah, you got to share that.
if I can find your business card again, I know I got it.
The GI Bill, anything to do with VA education stuff, 888-442-4551. So if you could throw that up in the chat there, that would be great.
I'll throw it on the screen, actually.
Yep. And guys, check your state too. That's another good reason to know your VSO. You should go in every 5 years. In my state, in Wisconsin, because I'm rated over 30%, my spouse gets an entire tuition waiver program that allows him to go to any state technical school or state college And up to 10 years after the last child turns 18 and or 10 years after you get your over 30 ratings, because maybe the kids are grown and gone when you got it. So, and it allows children of that veteran to go to school. One of my guys has already sent 2 of his kids and his spouse to school. And his daughter's graduating this next spring, so she'll be using it.
Yeah, I know
No
California
tuition.
has a lot of programs like that as well. Like my spouse can go to school, my kids are covered for school and all that. So some great programs, state level programs as well.
Mhm.
Absolutely right.
And like our veterans, they come home if they've used their GI Bill, they've gotten their bachelor's degree or whatever. Now they can use the state one and go for a master's. Not a bad deal.
No, not at all. So it says R. Robinson 87's next question. I paid into the Montgomery and transferred to the post after I served. Okay. So it sounds like he's eligible. I mean, there might
Sounds
be
like it.
some in and outs. I mean, some fine print on the VA website. Would you, Jane, suggest that he contact the VA directly just to make sure that they have all his stuff in order, all the details in check?
Yep. And if you need something, if you don't have the capacity to scan things in and stuff like that, you can go to your VSO and they'll scan those documents in. That's another thing. People will get out of service and they lose the number 4 copy of the DD-214. They keep that number 1. Well, that number 1 only goes 3/4 of the way down the page. It leaves off that important part at the bottom. It says honorable or general and what your spin code is. Oh, one of my young men that I worked with, his family brought him in. He had mental health concerns. And the parents were like, we're getting older. He was a late in life child. And we're worried what's going to happen to him after we're gone. Well, he'd gone in service and had a not real honest recruiter who did not mention his mental health concerns. And he got accepted in. And once you're in, you're 100% healthy in the VA's mind.
Yeah.
Right.
So later on, he'd done 2.5 years and he had a 3-year contract, and he had something trigger him. And he started having issues, and he told the drill sergeant he wanted to go home because if I go home now, then I can get enrolled in school. Now, that's not a realistic sounding thing, but in his situation, that was what was going on with his mind.
Yeah.
So the service said, "Oh, you do? Here, sign here. You can go." Well, on his spin code of his DD-214, it was for mental hygiene. But that spin code was actually a code that hadn't been used in, 10, 15 years before I saw him. So I had to actually go back and do the research and find the old regulation and looked up the spin code and went mental hygiene. Yeah, that's mental health. So I got him service connected for his bipolar.
Wow.
And so is the spin code like the reenlistment code, like the RE dash, whatever it is, number?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
That letter number code thing. Separation processing number, I think, or something like that. Anyways, so that little section of the document is like gold. As long as it has your name and your either file number or your service number or your DD-214 with your social security number, it has that bottom section. Well, some people lose them. They have a house fire or whatever. You can walk into a VSO office and say, "Hey, look, I know I live here in California, but I joined in Wisconsin. And when I got out and I separated, they told me they were sending a copy back to my home of record." So then that VSO in California calls the state of Wisconsin and says, "Do you have a copy of this?" And look in the computer and they go, "Yeah." As a custodian of a legitimate document, they can email it to that VSO who is accredited, can print that off, and they have a stamp that says this is a true copy of an original document as held by an authorized custodian. And then they can sign and date it.
So the VSOs are the holders of those DD-214s. So if I ever lost mine, I'd go back to the VSO that I saw, or how's that?
Well, you go to the state,
The
but you
state.
can
Okay,
go to the
gotcha.
VSO in California and pull it from the Wisconsin records.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
I could do that all the time, and a lot of times I could have that DD-214 within one business day.
Hmm.
And if the state database didn't have it, okay, what county did you live in? When you went home, did you register it? Yeah, I registered it in La Crosse, Wisconsin. Okay, I could call La Crosse County and say it was registered during this time period, and they could pull the register book and say, you're good to go, and
Nice.
scan me a copy of that. So we can get documents much faster than the National Archives. But again,
Hmm.
if you filed your claim already with the VA, they already have a copy, and you want all your personnel records and stuff like that, request a copy from the VA of your entire claim file. It'll be in there.
Yeah, I was so scared of losing my DD-214. I uploaded it to like my cloud. I saved it to a hard drive. I got it tattooed on my chest. I put it everywhere, right? And I was afraid because I heard horror stories like, oh, what do I do? Where's my DD-214? I can't get this or that. I can't submit it. So I saved it every place. I have a hard copy here, just in the cloud, everywhere.
Yeah.
One copy in a
I've
safe
got like
deposit
3 or
box
4
in the
copies.
Caribbean.
There you
That's
go. Yep. Hey, I got to go to the Caribbean to get my copy.
I go down to the Cayman Islands for something. I'll be right back.
With your offshore accounts, yeah.
Yeah. So,
I think
but nowadays, the guys with electronic medical records and service, they don't even need to worry about the paper ones anymore.
Yep.
These new
Theoretically.
guys, they can go into a computer, look it up, and say, oh, there's
Mhm.
my DD-214, and there's my service treatment records. I know I'm going to go through and look, oh, here's when I twisted my ankle, and
Yeah,
make it
technology
easy on the
is
radar.
making it all very convenient. Absolutely.
I think we got one more
All right.
question here, and then at the end we'll have there's a comment that I want to pull up at the end, but that'll be
Yep.
later on.
All right. We got Rudy Muriel here. It says, good day. I'm a Desert Shield / Storm veteran and went through my VSO in 2003 and have been denied any type of benefits 3 times. What's my next move?
Okay. Call me.
Call Jane.
And I say that, if you're on LinkedIn, please send me a connection request. I'll send you the electronic tools, the list of, like the links to the federal benefits book, the Agent Orange stuff, the presumptive list, the pension article and screening tools, all that stuff that I teach with. I could send you to that stuff electronically, and then we could set up a one-on-one video call. There's a great feature on LinkedIn. Once you're connected with somebody, there's a little camera icon in the top corner. You click on that and you could say instant meeting. In other words, I want to see this person right now, or let's schedule it for tomorrow at 10 o'clock. And they get the link, and the next day you click and you're on. So let's do a one-on-one, because I have so many questions. Typing it back and forth, here's my question. Oh, you said yes or no to this, and I have to do this. And it's a pain in the butt. Yeah. Let's do a one-on-one.
The asynchronous decision trees kind of sucks. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, actually, Jane is the one that taught me about that feature on LinkedIn. I had no idea that you can connect on the camera on there. I was like, oh, wow, this is pretty cool. LinkedIn, and then I guess Instagram also has a feature like that. And I learn something new every day.
Yeah, LinkedIn's going to eventually make it so you can do so many other people. Like you could do a group thing.
No.
Wow.
Oh, that'll be nice.
You know what doesn't have that feature is TikTok after the 19th of this month. They're taking that away.
Boo.
Oh, well.
Too soon.
Yeah.
Too soon.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
Good,
and everybody says to me, why don't you make your own podcast? And it's like, I don't want one audience. I want everybody else's audience.
That's right.
So there you go. Yeah, I mean, it's great because you give out great information, things I haven't even thought about before. A question I got about the Neer claim that you touched on. I mean, you're just a wealth of information, Jane. I mean, you can go around to every one of these veteran podcasts and just touch different audiences or everybody's audience. It truly is great what you're doing here, giving out
Thanks,
great
Vic.
information. Yeah.
I just look at it as I'm a geek and I have this regulations up inside my head and I need to verbally puke them out once in a while. So,
I think we all have that a little bit. John and I talk about it all the time. I think we're all geeks at heart.
yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah. And John, you said you had a comment or something after Rudy's question.
Yeah, we can do it at the wrap up at the end. If anybody wants
Okay.
to stick around for that, it's about some business stuff that we talked about in the beginning. One of
Okay.
the comments in there, some good information should be coming up actually later on today.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're out there listening and you're on LinkedIn, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. I am there nearly every day, except for I missed a little bit of time this year because I had to have a couple surgeries on the roof of my mouth. They rebuilt my jaw. The VA dental is amazing.
Wow.
Huh.
So they did everything internal to my mouth, so I have no scars on the outside. But if you're on LinkedIn, please reach out to me. If you are a third connection from me and don't have LinkedIn Premium, veterans are allowed a year of free. So reach out and see about getting your free year. If all you do is look at my profile, every week I go back and I look and see who has looked at my profile. And if they're a military veteran, anything on their profile, whether it's a group they're in or whatever, indicates to me that you are either a veteran or married to a veteran or something like that, I will send you a request to connect to me.
That's awesome.
So if all you do is look at me. But I want to give the tools so you can share them. I believe in exponential growth.
That's great. Great. Well, Jane, is there anything that we haven't covered today that maybe you want to let our audience or other veterans out there know about anything, claims, benefits, just education-wise?
Okay. Well, there's a lot of stuff when it comes to memorial honors and free plots and free
Yeah.
headstones and all that stuff. But the big thing I would like to push today, it's not that far away, Memorial Day.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, less than 600,000 widows are receiving benefits. But it's estimated that there's 2 million eligible. Most of these, of course, are going to be older veterans or widows or widowers. And their veteran died of something presumptive. Maybe they died of bladder cancer and they're a Gulf War guy. But he's been gone for 4 years. She's not listening to VA news. So
Right.
if you can, reach out to those widows and widowers and make sure that they're aware of the additions to the presumptive list, the potential for them now to be, and it doesn't have to be the direct cause. One of my guys drowned from pneumonia, but that was because he had so much service connected stuff he couldn't fight the pneumonia. So relationship of that can count. But reach out to those widows and widowers and say, hey, it's time to go in and talk to a VSO because you may be eligible for DIC. And if you're not eligible for DIC, but you're trying to support the 3 kids at home, or your veteran died and now you're on one Social Security check, maybe you get some pension money. Please.
Absolutely. And I have we got one more question here, Jane, before we wrap it up. It is from Dave Owens. Can I use VA healthcare even though I bought a family health plan through benefits?
Yeah, you're the veteran. You can use VA. I use VA. I'm a retiree. My husband has all the benefit stuff and TRICARE and all that stuff. And technically, I could use TRICARE. But now with the expansion of community care, I call a VA and say, hey, look, I need to get in because I'm coughing up a lung today from some kind of respiratory whatever. Oh, we can't get you in, but yeah, you sound crappy, so go to your local walk-in and VA pays for it. If
Yeah.
I'm in a mental health crisis and I became suicidal or something, I could walk into my local emergency room and they say, yeah, you need to be inpatient. And the VA says, we don't have a bed available, which 99 times out of 100, that's what they'll say.
Mm-hmm.
But the doctor there says, no, she needs to be hospitalized. VA will pay up to 30 days in your local hospital.
Wow.
That's under the Compact Act. So if you,
Compact Act.
yep. So Compact Act will pay for 30 days at your local hospital, and they will pay 90-day outpatient treatment at a local facility near you. So, and if they need to, they can extend those too.
I am learning so much, Jane. To be honest.
Now you got to go share it, Vic.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you know, I am, and I feel the need to pay it all forward. I mean, John and I have been blessed by so many folks, so many knowledgeable folks out there who have just poured all their knowledge onto us. And I feel like this is part of paying it forward here, the podcast, the YouTube channel. And then, you know, I'm also trying to set something up on LinkedIn. If you see my post on LinkedIn, like a veteran / retiree panel for folks who are getting out of the service, whether it be retiring or just separating. Just a panel of folks who have been there, done that, who have gone through the whole transition, and just some active duty service members, you know, in an informal setting, maybe have some coffee, bagels, or whatever, and just ask questions to the panel. Just like, hey, what did you go through mentally, physically? What's the best guidance, tips, et cetera, that you can give us? So that's something I'm currently trying to set up, but I don't know. I may have to call on you, Jane, and to help educate the panel or
And I'd
the
be happy
audience.
to. I do
Awesome.
question and answer for groups. Just recently did a women's auxiliary group out in California.
Mm-hmm.
They put me up on their TV, and we sat there and did Q&A.
That's
So,
awesome. That's great. That's great. Yeah, the more education, the better, I feel.
yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, John, I mean, go ahead, Jane. Sorry.
We'll do what the VA refuses to do. Really
Right.
reach out to each other.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jane, unless you have something else, John, Jane, I really want to thank you for coming on the Military Retirement and Transition podcast. You have been a wealth of information. You have educated me. You have educated our audience. You have answered a ton of questions. I think a lot more questions than we've ever gotten before.
Yeah. Tons.
Which is awesome. I mean, it's great having folks like you come on and educate the community. You know, as we always say, each one teach one, and I think you definitely have done that.
Yep. Everybody take care, and remember, Memorial Day isn't that far away. If you're looking to participate in your community, reach out to your posts and things like that. They're the ones that put the flags out. They're the ones that hold the teas and the coffees, the auxiliaries, to talk to the surviving family and stuff. You never know what's going on in your community.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you, Jane. Thank you for everything.
Thanks,
Take care.
Jane.
God bless.
Seeing you again.
You as well. Man, how many,
Whew.
John, how many pages have you filled in your
A
logbook?
couple. I'm running out of paper. I need a new logbook. That's what's happening here.
I got a page and a half here. Oh man, just some good information. Like, I did not know about the Compact Act. That's awesome.
Yeah.
The VA pays 30 days of local hospital. You know, I would have never known that. I mean, not even thought of looking that up, you know.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff that I have been paying out of pocket. Now I have to go back, start at step one, and then check everything else out, because I just learned so much. It's great having folks like Jane on the podcast.
Yeah, wealth of knowledge. That's why I said when we connected out at MIC, and we had realized that we were already connected on LinkedIn for, like, I don't know, a year or 2 years or whatever it was before that. So meeting in person, got to see her a few times, and every time I turned around, she was in a different group, moving somewhere, doing something. She was always on the go. She even came and sat down to our little podcast get together thing for a minute. So great individual, just really out there doing the hard work that, as she said, the VA is not necessarily doing, not because they don't want to, but because it's a heavy lift for them, besides all the other stuff that they're doing. So
Right.
yeah, always good. I did want to bring this back up real quick, because I let Brian know that I was going to pull it up here. So I'll just bring this up for the audience to read. It looks like there's a thing going on at 4 p.m. Eastern today. So if you're looking to do some scholarships for, what is it, Blue University for 1 year, learning business, CEO, leader advice.
So let's just read it for the folks on the
Yeah, go ahead.
who may be listening to. It says from Brian Arrington. I'm a grad of EBV from IVMF. I also have access to over $510,000 full ride scholarships to Blue University for 1 year of learning from millionaire business CEOs and leaders. I'm giving away to the whole military community these scholarships this month and have a watch party at 4 p.m. Eastern today if people want to see the first 2 weeks of lessons. It's a 45 minutes a class. Hey, excellent opportunity. Thanks for sharing, Brian. Yeah, that's awesome.
It's great. And here's the little follow-up that he threw in there. Grads of Blue University get the opportunity to pitch to angel investors when they graduate. So that's kind of an added benefit and added bonus. If you do get the scholarship, do the 1 year and then graduate, then you get to pitch to some angel investors and look for some seed funding for your business idea or business plan. The IVFM, that's the one through Syracuse University, right? If I'm not mistaken.
I think so. I mean, I've seen it before. Let me pull it up here real quick.
Let me Google it real quick.
Yeah, it looks like the Daniello Institute for Veterans and Military Families. Yep, IVMF.
Syracuse EDU.
Yep.
Awesome.
So there we go. Yeah, Syracuse EDU does a lot of stuff for the veterans. Like they were doing like the whole PMP class there. Definitely look them up if you want some training. I mean, it's usually covered for recent retirees and recent veterans as well. So definitely check them out.
Let me do something. I'm going to grab Jane's LinkedIn and throw it in the chat. Somebody just asked about it. And then after that, for David Owens.
Oh, David Owens. I know David Owens. He's look at that beard. He grew that real quick. He just retired.
Yeah. So there you go, Dave. I threw it in the chat and I can throw it up on the screen too real quick if you want. Yeah, that's fine as well. Where's it at? Oh God, I'm losing track. Too many things. There it is. Boom. There we go. It's Jane's LinkedIn. If you're watching or if you're checking us out on video, that's it. If you need to get it. Yeah, that's all we got for this week, man. This is it's been a really good one. Really, really good one.
It has, yeah. And if you need anything, please reach out. We have the group on Facebook, the Military Retirement Group. It's growing. I just approved like 10 more folks like yesterday and today. So it's definitely getting up there. You can catch us on YouTube, the podcast, the Military Retirement Group, or the Military Retirement Podcast, and my own personal channel, The Green Logbook, on YouTube. So you can find us in all these places. On LinkedIn. Been getting a lot of connections, been putting out a lot of ideas on LinkedIn. So check them out. Tell me if the ideas are dumb or not. If I suck at life, then I'll move forward. So thank you all for listening. If you got anything else, John?
Nope. Thanks everybody for checking us out, sticking with us, paying attention. Hope we answered all your questions. If you have any more questions, feel free to throw them in the chat because the video lives in perpetuity. So you can ask questions after the fact, weeks and months after the fact, and we'll jump back in there. And if there's something pertinent for Jane, we'll pass it on to her direct message, or you can pass it on yourself.
100%. All right. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
Appreciate it, everybody. Thanks. See you later.
Out here.